So today we're diving into one of the most disturbing, emotional, and complex characters in the entire Resident Evil universe, Mother Miranda. Not just a villain, not just a scientist, but a woman driven so far by grief that she literally reshaped life, death, and human evolution itself. And once you understand her full story, you'll realize something terrifying. Everything that happens in Resident Evil Village was planned over 100 years ago. Let's break it down from the very beginning. Mother Miranda was born sometime in the late 19th century, around the 1880s, in a remote European village heavily inspired by rural Romania. At that time, the village was isolated, deeply traditional, and largely untouched by modern science. Miranda lived a normal life at first. She wasn't a monster, she wasn't a god, she was just a mother. In 1909, Miranda gave birth to her only child, her daughter, Eva, and for a while, everything was normal, peaceful, human. But that peace didn't last. In 1919, Europe was devastated by one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, the Spanish flu. This wasn't just an illness, it was a global catastrophe. Millions died, entire communities collapsed. And unfortunately, Eva was one of the victims. At just 10 years old, Eva became infected. And soon after, she died. This moment is the single most important turning point in Miranda's entire story. Because from here, everything breaks. Miranda couldn't accept it. She refused to accept that her daughter was gone. The grief consumed her completely, and the situation around her made things even worse. Cemeteries were overflowing. There was no space left to bury the dead, so people started burying their loved ones near their homes. And Miranda did the same. She buried Eva close by. But instead of finding closure, she lost herself even further. She wandered aimlessly, mentally broken, emotionally destroyed, completely detached from reality, until one day, she found something, a cave, hidden, ancient, and inside that cave was something that would change the course of human history forever. The Megamycete, an enormous, ancient fungal superorganism. This wasn't just mold. This was something far beyond anything science had ever understood. A living network, a biological archive, a consciousness. When Miranda approached it, something unbelievable happened. She made contact with it, and the moment she touched its roots, she experienced something no human ever had before. Memories, not her own, thousands of them. The Megamycete had absorbed the consciousness of countless dead individuals over time. Everyone who had been infected, everyone who had been buried, everyone who had come into contact with this organism, their memories were preserved inside it. And among those memories, Miranda saw her daughter, Eva, not physically alive, but existing within the Megamycete's memory network. For Miranda, this wasn't just hope, this was proof. Proof that death wasn't the end. Proof that Eva could be brought back. That moment completely redefined her purpose. From that point on, Miranda no longer saw the Megamycete as a biological organism. She saw it as something divine. She began to worship it, calling it the Black God. And in doing so, she gave up her humanity. Miranda allowed herself to be fully infected by the Megamycete, and this changed her completely. She became something else, something beyond human. She gained regenerative abilities, near immortality, the ability to manipulate her form, to shapeshift, to mimic others. But more importantly, she gained knowledge, an understanding of biology that was far beyond her time. And with this new power, she returned to her village. But she didn't return as a grieving mother. She returned as something far more powerful, a healer. Miranda began curing diseases, saving lives, performing what seemed like miracles. To the villagers, this wasn't science. This was divinity. They began to worship her. They called her Mother Miranda, a protector, a savior, a god. But behind that image was a completely different reality. Miranda wasn't helping people out of kindness. She was experimenting. Every cure, every blessing, every miracle was part of her research. Her goal was singular: bring Eva back, no matter the cost. And to do that, she needed something very specific: a perfect vessel. Because while Eva's consciousness existed within the Megamycete, her physical body was gone. So Miranda needed to recreate her. She needed a host body that could fully accept Eva's essence. And that's where her experiments began. Miranda developed a parasitic organism, later known as the Cadeau parasite. This parasite allowed her to infect humans and test their compatibility with the Megamycete. But there was a problem. Most humans couldn't handle it. Their bodies rejected the infection, and instead of evolving, they mutated, grotesquely. These failed subjects became lichens, the terrifying wolf-like creatures that roam the village. But Miranda didn't stop. Failure didn't matter to her, only results did. She kept experimenting, hundreds of subjects, maybe thousands, until finally, a few individuals showed promise. 4 individuals to be exact. These became known as the Four Lords: Alcina Dimitrescu, Donna Beneviento, Salvatore Moreau, Carl Heisenberg. Each of them survived the Cadeau infection. Each gained unique abilities. Each became powerful in their own way. But none of them were perfect. None could serve as Eva's vessel. Still, Miranda kept them, not as equals, but as tools. She formed a hierarchy, a false family, with herself at the top. She ruled over them, controlled them, used them, all while continuing her experiments in secret. Years passed. Decades passed, but Miranda didn't age, didn't weaken, didn't stop. Her obsession only grew stronger. And then, in the 1950s, something extremely important happened. A young man named Oswell E. Spencer arrived in her village. At the time, Spencer was just a medical student, curious, ambitious, obsessed with the idea of human evolution. When he met Miranda, everything changed for him. She became his mentor, his inspiration, his gateway into a new understanding of biology. Spencer studied under Miranda, learned from her, observed her experiments, and most importantly, he saw the potential. But there was a difference between them. Miranda wanted one thing, Eva. Spencer wanted something much bigger. He wanted to evolve humanity, to create a superior race, to become a god in his own way. Eventually, Spencer left Miranda, but he didn't leave empty-handed. He took her ideas, her knowledge, her vision, and later, he used them to create something massive. The Umbrella Corporation. Everything that happens in the wider Resident Evil universe, the T-Virus, the outbreaks, the bioweapons, all of it can be traced back to Miranda. She is the origin, the root, the foundation. But while Spencer moved forward with his vision, Miranda stayed focused on hers. Eva. Always Eva. Years later, another organization entered the picture. A mysterious group known as the Connections. This was a black market bioweapon organization, highly secretive, highly dangerous, and interestingly, connected to Umbrella's past. They approached Miranda, not as enemies, but as collaborators. They knew about the Megamycete, they knew about her research, and they wanted access to it. Miranda agreed. She provided them with mold samples, she shared her knowledge, and in return, she gained resources, technology, support. This collaboration led to the creation of one of the most important figures in Resident Evil history, Evelyn, a bioengineered human weapon designed to control minds, to create a family, to manipulate people at a psychological level. Miranda even met Evelyn's caretaker, Mia Winters. At this point, everything was connected. Miranda, the Connections, Umbrella's legacy, all merging into one timeline. But things didn't go perfectly. In 2014, the BSAA raided the Connections. Evelyn was transported to North America, and this leads directly into the events of Resident Evil 7, where Ethan Winters enters the story. Ethan becomes infected with the mold, but unlike most, he survives. His body adapts. He gains resilience, something very rare. After the events of RE7, Ethan and Mia are relocated to Europe, and in 2020, their daughter is born, Rosemary Winters. And this is where everything changes for Miranda. Because Rosemary is exactly what she's been searching for. The perfect vessel. A child born from mold-infected parents. Genetically unique. Perfectly compatible. For Miranda, this wasn't coincidence. This was destiny. She begins observing them, studying them, waiting. And finally, in 2021, she makes her move. Miranda kidnaps Mia, takes her place, lives with Ethan for a short time, pretending to be his wife, studying him, understanding him, waiting for the right moment. And then she strikes. She takes Rosemary. And that's where Resident Evil Village begins. But when you look at the full story, this isn't just a random kidnapping. This is the result of over 100 years of planning, of obsession, of loss, of a mother who refused to let go. Miranda isn't evil in the traditional sense. She's broken, completely consumed by grief. She lost her daughter, and instead of accepting it, she tried to rewrite reality itself. And in doing so, she created monsters, destroyed lives, and became one herself. But the real question is, if you lost everything and had even a small chance to bring it back, would you stop at anything? Or would you become something worse than Miranda? Subscribe for daily gaming news.